True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, I want to share with you the third arrest in the Crystal Rogers missing case. And there actually was some really big digging of maybe another body being found, maybe related to this case. And so we're going to dive into what we know at this time. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Crystal Rogers was last seen July 3rd, 2015, the day before 4th of July, where they were going to be celebrating. On July 5th, she was reported missing by her parents, and then her car is found on that same day. Not too sure, actually. Maybe the car was found and then she was reported missing because they were looking for her, something along those lines. Then that same year, October 16th, Rogers is presumed dead, and her ex-boyfriend, Brooks Houck, is the main suspect. But they couldn't prove anything at that time. Now we're going on 8 years later. The next year, November 19th of 2016, her dad, Tommy Ballard Rogers' father, he is fatally shot while on a hunting trip with his grandson. August 2020, the FBI takes over the Crystal Rogers case, and they literally take it to the next level. They start searching several locations, including Houck's home. Again, he still wasn't arrested at that time. Now, August 27th of 2021, investigators find some items of interest under the driveway of property that Houck was connected to. There was multiple properties that were connected to Houck, and that was also in connection into the search for the missing young lady. Now, October 21st, 2022, FBI agents, they conclude a second search of the 245-acre Houck family farm with evidence sent to the FBI crime lab. And then finally, things start breaking loose. June 21st of this year, the grand jury indicts Joseph Lawson on conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence in connection to an incident on the same 2015 weekend when Rogers disappeared. Again, 4th of July weekend. And then in August, Kentucky State Police arrest Lawson. And so first he's indicted, then he's arrested. But that's when I started reporting on this. And then it was like, okay, there's no doubt that there will be another arrest. And come around September 7th, Lawson's first court appearance, and then he goes back to court. FBI arrests Houck on September 27th of this year. Okay, because we knew it was in the works. Then he is charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence, with his bond being set at $10 million. So you knew he was going to be staying in there. And they tried to make it so high so that he did not have money for bail. And so then he's arraigned, and then another bombshell drops. So then we now have our third arrest in this case. First, you had Joseph Lawson that was arrested first. Then Brooks Houck is arrested. Then Steve Lawson. That's right, folks. The dad. If you've been following this on my channel, you saw me play a short video of Brooks inside the interview. and we'll dive into that a little deeper. But he picks up the phone and he calls during the investigation, while they're interviewing him. He picks up the phone and he calls Steven Lawson and he says, "What was that reason I called you about?" And so again, that didn't help matters for them, and we'll dive into that. But now he's charged with conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. You see, this shocking third arrest is made in connection to the death of Crystal Rogers, the missing mother of 5 from Bardstown. She was last seen alive the 4th of July weekend in 2015. And ever since then, we have been trying to figure out what is going on in that town of Bardstown, that unsolved murders continue to happen. And then we thought this would be another one, but no. FBI says no, they're going to fight and find out what happened to this missing mom of 5. And so court records show that Steve Lawson has been indicted on 2 charges: conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. Again, another related charge to what the other ones were: tampering with physical evidence, meaning they all were messing with, I'm sure we can think those through. And so the charges, they stem from the incident over the 4th of July weekend in 2015 when she was reported missing. And investigators say that he, acting alone or with others, mutilated, concealed, or destroyed physical evidence and aided a person in the planning or commission of a crime causing the death of another person. And so Steve is charged with that as well. And notice in there saying acting alone or with others. We don't really know. This is still a continuing breaking story. Someone's going to open up and share everything for a lighter. And maybe that's why the other arrests began. Joseph Lawson is said to have maybe a little impairment, that he's not one of the most educated people. I don't even know how best to phrase it, but he might have a disability that, maybe like a learning or something along those lines. And so I feel like him being arrested first started leading to opening up the chapter even more. And then now we have multiple chapters since. And now we know that he's charged with that. They're all charged with something related to all of this, and it all goes back to Crystal Rogers. Now, Steve Lawson is said to be the dad of Joseph Lawson. Okay, the one on the far left is Joseph, one on the far right is Steven, the dad. And at the same time, we do know that Kentucky State Police detective, they executed a warrant on Joseph Lawson in August of 2023. That was 2 months after the indictment of him on 2 charges. And so both Steve Lawson and Joseph Lawson, they are both facing the same charges. Again, investigators saying that they both might have done this, which we find out might be together: conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. So they're both facing the exact same thing. Now, Steve Lawson, he's currently incarcerated in Indiana. And so they've arrested him and they're holding him there. Now remember, this Bardstown, this is a Kentucky case, but he was arrested and he still currently is in there. His arraignment has been scheduled for later on this month on December 21st. And so Steve Lawson, he was mentioned, if you remember, in the interview, okay? He was mentioned in this interview. And I shared with you the interview this is one of the very first interviews. And, when I was watching this interview, and I don't think I even played what they were talking about, I just had them playing. You can find it online. It's like 2 hours long. And, while I was listening to the interview, it struck me how calm he was about this. And with that, it's like like, was it rehearsed? Did he just feel like no matter what, they're not gonna have much on me? What was his thought process that he thought, no big deal, they don't have anything on me? Now, Brooks Houck, he's in this interview. While they're interviewing him, he's like, I don't remember why I talked to Steve Lawson on the phone. Literally. He's like, I don't really know. And so that's where it's like they ask him, right? So the interrogation, it takes place inside the Nelson County Sheriff's Office. And the detective had asked who was on the other end of the line during a late night phone call on the night Rogers disappeared, right? And so they ask him that. And so Detective John Snow, he says, who's Steve Lawson? Houck, he says, Steve Lawson works for me. Right? Okay. So Houck told the detective that he couldn't remember why Steve Lawson had called him so late. Then he picks up the phone at that very moment and he called him from inside the interrogation room. Almost like this part might have been expected. Like, hey, I'm gonna call you. I'm not gonna remember why. Like, almost like this part probably was, rehearsed a little bit, but he messes up, right? So he picks up the phone and he calls him from inside the interrogation room. And he says, the other night you called me really, really late. I can't remember what you were calling me about. Steve Lawson tells Houck that he called him with a question about rental properties, which Houck replied he had to ask Crystal and would call her to ask and would call him back. Now, Detective Snow, he had to think for a second about this answer, and he follows up with another question because of an earlier statement that Houck made to him. So Detective Snow, he says, so that begs the question in my mind. Obviously, think about that right there. So that begs the question in my mind, which means this is going to be a bombshell question. If she's in the truck next to you when she called, why would you need to call her? He's basically caught in a lie, right? He says that she wasn't in the truck, or that she was in the truck, but when she's on the phone and he's like, oh, well, you told me you were going to get back with me later after you tell him you got to ask Crystal. But wait, Crystal's in the truck. Why can't you ask her at that very moment, right? That's what the detective is thinking. But he doesn't think about that until oh, wait a second. You told me this a little earlier. Wait a second. So I want to follow up on that. Again, if she's in the truck next to you when he called, why would you need to call her? And so, Now, Brooks Houck, that's her former boyfriend. He's been arrested in this case, as I shared, and he's charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence. That's according to court documents. And so, again, we don't know. There's still multiple people that could be involved with this. Let me tell you, that is something that I truly believe we're not done hearing about. Is others going to be arrested? Though cases like this, generally, everyone's keeping to themselves. It's a big secret. Don't tell too much. Too much has been said to too many people already. I already know there's too many people involved. Too many people. You already got 3 arrests, right? You got 3 arrests. They're all facing something. But is there another arrest coming? That's a question that I wonder, because if you remember, Brooks' brother was fired from the police force because he failed a lie detector test in reference to this case, right? He was not forthcoming. So maybe he doesn't know anything and he was just being protective of his brother. But who else? Because we know that there was a white car that was involved. All of a sudden this white car's gone, and then the property is being searched for it on another piece of property, on someone who pleads the fifth and did not want to talk at all. Did not want to give any information. This is a small town. You got to be careful if you cross the wrong paths. Is this that type of family? Is this that type of family that if you cross the wrong path, that could be bad news? We don't know, because first you had Crystal, and then a year later you have the dad. That also doesn't make any sense, right? And so there was a search in this that makes me wonder, did they find Crystal? We won't know yet, and I'll share with you but there were multiple unmarked police vehicles that were doing a search. There was heavy excavating equipment, dozens of personnel carrying tools in Cox Creek on Wednesday, a couple days ago, in a search. Now this search, they said it could be something to do with Jason Ellis, who was ambushed and killed, and they still don't know who did that. It could have something to do with Tommy Ballard. It could have something to do with Crystal Rogers. We don't really know, but multiple law enforcement agencies, they were conducting a massive dig in Nelson County a couple of days ago with ties to at least one of these high-profile unsolved cases that has gripped this Bardstown area, literally. And so the FBI and Kentucky State Police, they focused their efforts on a wooded area off Thompson Hill Road in Cox Creek. And then this arrest happened, so it's like, okay, this is just south of Mount Washington, near the Nelson and Bullitt County line. And so one special prosecutor, Shane Young, told one of these news outlets, WHAS 11, that his office had initiated this search in connection to one of the 3 unsolved murders in Bardstown. One of them being the ambushed police officer, Jason Ellis, the missing mother of 5, Crystal Rogers, or her father, Tommy Ballard, who was shot and killed on a hunting trip almost exactly 1 year to the date of her disappearance. And so it is believed that this is the first time that the authorities, the police, they, were in this area searching with any connection to these cases. And so there were unmarked police vehicles. There was all this heavy excavating equipment to dig and dig and dig. And a lot of people that were working this case carrying a bunch of tools. And so there's also a house on the property, but one neighbor said that house has been vacant for a while now, and they don't really know. It's unclear why the home was searched. They don't really know why. And until Tommy's father, Crystal's, till Ballard, Tommy's father, and Crystal's grandfather rushed to the search site, it's like everyone's wondering what is going on here. Is this related to Crystal or Tommy? Because till Ballard, again, Crystal's grandfather, when he hears about this, he's like, what's going on? What's going on? And so his thought process was, he believes that it's in reference to Crystal Rogers. And he even says that, I believe it has to be Crystal's remain, because Jason Ellis, they buried him and we buried Tommy. So she's the only one in Nelson County that's left. I just hope the day comes that we get her remains and bury her, and everybody that's involved in this pays for it the rest of their lives. And so according to Till Ballard, the grandpa, he says that we believe they found Crystal. Authorities, as of now, didn't say anything. It could be a big breaking news come Monday or something, right? So we'll definitely keep you posted if anything breaking happens. If I'm if I'm here and I can do it, I will definitely do it. But if I'm not, I'll do it as soon as I can, because this girl, she deserves justice. And the Ballard family, they said that the property, they were not familiar with this property that they were searching, but they said that they are holding out hope that the investigation really brings out something big that can connect the dots with all of this. And Till Ballard, he said, it feels real good. Hopefully we'll get some justice and find her remains. And Jason Ellis' family, said that they too are holding out hope that somehow this property holds some type of ties to his case and, to ultimately bring out some answers. Because you had Rogers, who disappeared in 2015 over the 4th of July. And although her remains have never been found, she has been presumed dead all these years. And then shortly after her disappearance, her car was found along the Bluegrass Parkway with her keys, phone, and purse still inside. And then now we have 3 people that are charged in her case. Right? 3 people. Joseph Lawson, who, he probably didn't actually do the but I think he's responsible for helping hiding a lot of the evidence. And then you had Brooks Houck himself, who is now gonna be, he will not be getting out. His bond is so high. And then the shocking third one of Joseph Lawson's dad. And so, Tommy Ballard, he was shot and killed during a hunting trip with his grandson. And so during a court hearing of Brooks, the prosecution, they said that they are in possession of the gun that they believe killed Tommy Ballard. Who killed Tommy Ballard, right? They said that they are in possession of the gun. Investigators said that they purchased the gun themselves from Houck's brother, Nick. Remember Nick, the former Bardstown police officer? Do you see why I truly believe we are not done having arrests? Because who pulled the trigger of this gun? And is it any of these 3 that have already been arrested? And if so, is this the gun that is only related to Tommy? Where did it come from? Was it sold from Nick? That definitely ties him to Crystal Rogers' case, right? And you had Bardstown police officer Jason Ellis. He was shot and killed in an ambush style attack in 2013. He had just finished working a shift with the Bardstown Police Department, and he was on his way home when he saw something unusual. There was some branches that was blocking an exit ramp off the Bluegrass Parkway. Even though he was off the clock, he thought, let me continue to be servicing my area, right? Investigators, they have never fully linked the Ellis case to Rogers' case, so they don't know anything in reference to what could be there, but we don't really know, right? But in a 2020 interview with the FBI Assistant Special Agent in charge, Mr. Brian Jones, he said that he believed that there are some answers in one of these Bardstown's case that could lead to answers in other cases. And so that's where Jason Ellis' family is like, okay, something here can help us solve something else, is what they're really getting at. And when you stop and you think about this, it's like, she didn't deserve this. Her kids didn't deserve this. Tommy didn't deserve this. Jason didn't deserve this. Something sinister is going on in that town. It's scary, if you ask me. And so, you're not asking me, but at the end of the day, my goal is to be a voice for the victims because they didn't deserve this. Crystal did not deserve this. If you are a person of prayer, please pray that the family gets justice, they find some peace and closure, and they find a way to live with her memory on. She had a whole life to live, and she had 5 wonderful children that will really, really miss their mom the rest of their lives. So they are continuously heartbroken. So please, if you're a person of prayer, please pray that the family finds some justice. And at the end of the day, my goal is to be a voice for you so that, hey, look at what could go on in this small little town of Bardstown. You really should be careful on what could go wrong in these crazy world we live in. What's going on over your shoulders? Because you never know when something sinister is about to happen. Be alert, be careful, be aware. You just never know. I'm Manny Rodriguez, and this has been another episode of Deep True Crime. Until next time, my friends, peace.